And I see a lot of people doing that. Exactly what I used to do is overanalyze, and it's still a tough thing for me. Is I want to know everything and learn everything before I make a decision.
This is Better Wealth with Caleb Guilliams. Welcome to the BetterWealth Breakdown, where we talk about concepts, quotes, and ideas from around the world to help you live a more intentional life now and in the future. And, man, I was actually hoping I was going to mess up on that because this would have been a perfect way to say open up the topic, which is...
Done is better than perfect.
Which is a tough concept for you, my friend.
Yeah, it's really tough. I grew up in a what I would call a perfectionist household where everything, there was a reason for everything, and you make sure that you put the thought through on everything. And I'm sure some of you have heard this story before of the idea of giving my dad the domain dreamcrushers.com, where you'd be able to submit your business ideas and he would tell you why they're a bad idea. Well, that all came from me having this entrepreneur mindset and always coming up with all these ideas, and my dad would tell me every reason why they wouldn't work. And so that got me to really do this analysis paralysis. Essentially, I analyzed everything. I thought about everything. I tried to, because I wanted that one idea, that one business plan that would be enough, that would pass the perfection test. And what ended up happening was I just thought of a lot of ideas. This is the coined term entrepreneurs. Where
You're watching this, by the way. Sorry.
And that, that's where it all kind of came to me, was like, man, I'm really not doing anything. I think I'm doing a lot of things because I'm drawing out all these things and building out all these schematics and this, that, and the other, and this perfect plan, but that was never put into action.
Yeah.
So what is it really worth?
Right.
And something that I learned later as we started building Better Wealth was this idea that perfection is the enemy of progress.
Oh, I like that.
And that was really tough for me as we were building this. It was taking me a lot of time to build out a lot of the systems early on and whatnot, because I wanted everything to be perfect. I had this vision of, the process when somebody comes in, they're going to get this perfect, way through, and everything's going to be amazing.
And what's funny is when you say that, it's like perfect is so relative, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like you might think something's perfect and I might not think it is. Or it could be perfect, but we could be thinking about serving 10 people when we need to be serving 10 million.
Right. Yeah, and I think my good buddy, Teddy Roosevelt.
Yeah. he was going to be in the studio, but he left before we got the cameras on. So
he has a famous quote that I love, and he says, "The best thing you can do is the right thing. The next best thing is the wrong thing, and the worst thing you can do is nothing." And that's really powerful, because you're not always going to make the right decision. You're not always going to, you might be attempting to do the right thing, but it might not be the right decision. The next best thing is the worst, or is the wrong thing.
Yeah.
Which, again, in business, it's not going to be this perfect, you're going to make the right decision all the time.
Yeah.
You're going to make wrong decisions. And if you're not, you're really not growing.
Totally.
But the worst thing you can do, is nothing.
Yeah.
And I see a lot of people doing that. Exactly what I used to do is overanalyze, and it's still a tough thing for me. Is I want to know everything and learn everything before I make a decision. And then I started looking to people like Jeff Bezos, who, love him or hate him, he's the publicly richest man in the world.
Yep.
And he talks all the time about a bias for action. Amazon, as you can see, they have a bias for action. They have a bias for growth.
Yep.
And in his 1997 shareholder letter, Jeff said, that this idea of growth is their number one thing that they need to do.
Yep.
And
I like that.
Because that will just transform everything. And when you start looking at what is Amazon doing, well, everybody's looking towards Amazon. Do you think they're worried about their competition?
No.
And that's, they're not making all the right decis. They
had a lot of failures, actually.
Had a ton of failures. The Fire Phone, anybody?
Yeah.
Anybody know what that is? They lost like $1 billion with a B on that. And But guess what? They were one of the first to the marketplace. And yeah, it was a huge flop. But then Alexa came out. And I bet most of you know what Alexa is.
Yeah, we probably just set off Alexa right now. Like, that's got to be the most annoying thing is like, dang it.
So it just goes back to, this idea of start making decisions and drive some action.
Yeah.
Because you'll figure it out. It's not going to be perfect, and that's okay. And I think, again, as we apply these not to just business but to your personal life, you're striving for perfection. I'm not sure if that's a great way to live.
Well, and it's a sucky way to live because who's going to measure that?
Exactly.
And there will always be someone that can make something better.
Yep.
And especially like I have an episode a long time like on this show on the statue critic. Mm-hmm. So easy to criticize.
Yeah. There's another quote. I actually think Oprah said this. And she said something along the lines of, if you focus on what you don't have, what you do have will never be enough.
Interesting. Yeah.
And it goes back to that, I think that's, and now we're going to go down the rabbit hole of, I think when you look at social media and all this stuff, everybody's seeing everybody's best life. They're seeing that, well, I want that, that perfect life. Well, newsflash, it doesn't exist. And if you're so focused on their life and not your own, you're never going to be happy with yours.
Exactly. The other thing to think about is ask the question, why are you afraid to put this thing out? And I bet there's some like insecurities, or there might be something deeper that you're afraid of. So I'm just curious, early on, and we both still struggle, but like, what was that deeper fear that you had for putting things out? Because for me, I'll go first. For me, it was because I cared about what people thought of me. Mm-hmm. That doesn't necessarily, that hasn't changed, but I just realized it doesn't really matter what Joe thinks about me or what Sally thinks about me, because my worth and my enjoyment and my strive to help people live a more intentional life should not matter and shouldn't be drawn away or impacted at all about what Joe and Sally think. Mm-hmm. And it's easy for me to say that, but when you read a comment from Joe or when you get criticized from Sally's mom, like it still affects me. And that's why I'm grateful that I'm here and that like I get to be around people that remind me why I'm doing what I'm doing. So like early on versus now, it's just been I've been a lot more comfortable knowing that not everyone's going to like me, mm-hmm. and that the purpose that we're headed towards is far outweighs the reactions, good or bad, that we get from people.
Yeah, and obviously that's where we're different. Is I've always kind of been like, I don't really care what people think about me.
Yeah.
And so that's what's interesting about you asking that question. It's pretty simple. I don't like doing things I'm bad at.
It's amazing that you still play ping pong.
Well, and see, that's the thing too, is once I start doing something, all I want to do is figure out how can I be as good or better than Caleb at ping pong or whatever it is. When I started skiing, all I want to do was be the best skier I could be. When I started playing ultimate frisbee, I just want to be the best frisbee player I could be. And if anybody saw me behind a camera, or in front of a camera, I should say, I always forgot to blink. And
apparently that doesn't come natural like to everybody.
And so it's really that is as soon as you put a lens in front of me, all of a sudden I just completely blank and things don't come out right. And then it goes back to, well, I'm trying to be perfect.
Right.
And now it's like, hey, you know what? Exactly what you're saying. The people who are going to say negative things about this, I'm not worried about that because they got deeper issues going on.
Yep.
And I would love to help them with that, honestly.
Yep.
And that's, again, going back to BetterWealth, like if you're criticizing what it is that we're doing here to help you increase your health, wealth, love, and happiness, and you have something negative to say about that, I would love to talk to you, because that's a prime example of where maybe we should score those things for you.
Yep. And
see where we're at and how can we increase those things.
Well, you are welcome to come on the show. We'll have a ask Dan anything segment. That's going to be a lot of fun. That's going to be crazy too. But so to kind of land the plane here, this done is better than perfect is so key I know that there are people listening to this and watching this right now that need to hear this, because you're literally in a job that you hate. You've been doing things with your money that you shouldn't. You've been listening to your in-laws this long because of why. And really do figure out why you want to do what you want to do. Figure out what you really want out of life, and then understand that action is far greater. I know I'm putting you on the spot, but can we end with the Teddy Roosevelt quote? Because I think it is so relevant. And Dan, I see so many people living life with a ton of regret, and I hate to say this, go to their grave regretting things, mainly because they were afraid that by doing something that they weren't going to be perfect, and they let that get in the way of them actually living their life.
Yeah, 100%. So Teddy Roosevelt said, the best thing you can do is the right thing. The next best thing is the wrong thing. And the worst thing you can do is nothing.
Make sure that sinks into your heart. Make sure that you really, live a life on purpose, live a life, an intentional life, and make sure that you really put perfect into perspective into the goals in life that you want to live. Thank you so much for listening to the BetterWealth podcast. It would mean the world to me if you could hit subscribe, leave a review, and share this with the people that you know and love.